Hello, everybody, and welcome to Real Wasted Thirst Impressions for the movie It. I'm Pat.
I'm Jackie.
I'm Sean.
We just got out right now. It is about 12:30. We didn't see a midnight screening because we waited a couple of days until the crowds died down. We're in the UA in Farmingdale, and I feel like this movie needed like a good recliner seat.
Which we had.
It was good.
It was nice.
Before we start on the movie itself, though, a little bit of background on how each of us came into it, though, because this is a remake, and it's an adaptation of a book, so, how did you guys first get into it?
I didn't. I've kind of religiously avoided this movie for 31 years. I remember seeing Pennywise as a kid, and it was just way too creepy for me. Even though I love Tim Curry, I love horror, I just still never wanted to watch this movie. And in preparation for the new one, I wanted to watch it, so I did about a month ago, and I actually kind of wished I had seen it as a kid because it wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. And I kind of wanted it to deliver on being as scary as I built it up in my head.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I remember specifically seeing the box to the cassette tape at the Northport video store, and I believe it was a two tape film.
Yeah.
Because the running time is so long, and I remember seeing it and being freaked out by it as a kid. And I think that when you see something like that as a kid, you immediately want to watch it because as scared as you are, you're very curious. So eventually I did watch the movie. It creeped me out as a kid. I watch it as an adult. Obviously it doesn't hold up the same way, but in a way I still actually do enjoy it for what it is. And in the back of my mind, I do keep in mind that it's a miniseries for network television, so they could only go so far. And I thought Tim Curry was great, but I eventually did get to the book. Now the funny thing is, I didn't read the book because it's 1,200 plus pages. I didn't have that much time, given what I do for a career. And I spend 2 hours a day in the car. So I came up with this brilliant idea of I'm going to listen to the audiobook. It's not until I download it through Audible that I find out that the audiobook is over 44 hours long.
That's a commitment. That is a commitment.
I finished it yesterday. I have been listening to it in the car on my way to and from work for a month. For a month. And I will tell you this about the book. It is irrationally long.
Yeah.
It's irrationally long.
The miniseries was irrationally long.
But you know what? To the miniseries credit, though, if you break up the miniseries and think about it as two separate films, it's going to have the same exact running time as this movie and the sequel.
Right.
So, I mean, I kind of forgive the running time of the miniseries in that aspect. But, he rambles on and on and on about characters that mean nothing and do nothing to move the story along. At the end of the day, it's a good story. It's fun. It's creepy. But it's too late. You could have literally told just as good a story in a third the pages.
Well, speaking of rambling on and on and on, let's get to the new movie.
Yes.
Thoughts?
Yay.
Yeah, it was excellent.
It was fun.
It was so goddamn good.
It was what I wished the original was. It was as scary as I thought I was going to be when I was a kid. It had a couple of jump scares, not as many as I thought there were going to be. I kind of wanted more, but the ones, it wasn't over the top. They were good. They were well placed. They were spaced out really well, I thought, and they weren't predictable at all.
I think what this movie did better than the miniseries is because, I didn't, go into my background of it because I really don't have any. I saw it once when I was, maybe 16 or 17, and I thought it was the most boring crap on the planet. I really did. I don't think Pennywise is scary. Even after tonight, I don't think he's scary. I think he's creepy, and I think he's fun to watch. I don't think he's a scary character.
Yeah, there was a point where I kind of got over everything, and I was I couldn't wait to see what he was gonna do next.
Yeah,
it's almost like a Negan, where I was kind of invested in that.
I was more entertained by him. Like, I wasn't, like, afraid that he would be in the next shot. I was anticipating it and hoping it would happen.
So that's the thing with Pennywise, even in the book, is it's not so much his appearance that's scary, because his appearance really is not supposed to be scary, because he's supposed to lure children in. It's his mentality, it's his motivation. That is what is scary about it, because he is absolutely twisted. He is absolutely demented. You know, it's similar to kind of like a Silence of the Lambs. To me, Hannibal Lecter is not a scary character, but he has horrifying motivation.
Yeah.
If I had to compare it to anything, that would be my closest comparison.
I don't know what I'd compare it to. All I know is that, like, who's the guy who does Pennywise now?
Bill Skarsgård.
I almost said Peter Skarsgård, but he's like
one of them.
An older actor. I feel like he did a great job with this. I feel like he brought a lot to it. I felt like a lot of it was very... Whenever he had to talk in the low voice, I felt it was very almost identical to the Tim Curry voice that he put on for that. But I felt like the faces that he made were more expressive. The overall atmosphere that he brought was a lot more disjoint. You had no idea what the hell was going to happen. And it was good.
And his makeup is excellent.
Yes.
It was.
And I like that he got a lot of FaceTime.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he spoke more, you saw him more, and they followed through on everything. I feel like in the it was a TV movie, so there were a lot of cutaways. They let you see what was happening.
Yeah.
And a lot of horror movies don't do that.
This movie went for it.
They really went for it, exactly. From
the
go.
All right. Spoilers are going to be in this video. From the very start, with Georgie getting attacked, that really set the stage that this was going to be a lot more gruesome, a lot more, gory in terms of... It wasn't really a gory movie. It had maybe one or two moments where there was even blood in it, but the rest of it was... The implications were so much more terrifying.
Yeah, comparing the two, having been the only person in this car that's experienced the miniseries, this adaptation, and the book, the TV miniseries, much closer to the actual book.
Yeah.
Okay.
This took a lot of liberties, and I think part of that has to do with the fact that the original book is set in the 1950s. It's set in 1958, and it was written... Stephen King, it took him 4 years to write the book. He started writing it in 81. He didn't finish it until 85. So the mentality of what was acceptable behavior, what was acceptable speech 35 years ago is obviously very different than it is now. The way that the world worked and the mindset of a lot of people in the 1950s is very, very different than it is now. Obviously, nowadays, it can be argued that it's much more further thinking. One thing I really didn't like about this is that I felt that they really downplayed Mike Hanlon as a character. Mike Hanlon is African American, and there's the implication that Henry Bowers doesn't like him because he's black, though he never comes out and directly says it.
Yeah.
That's really his motivation in the book for disliking Mike Hanlon.
Right.
Okay.
Obviously, racism being, it's so taboo today that I don't know that, unfortunately, I don't know that there's a way that they could have presented it as fiction without there being an uproar.
Well, even then, considering the time frame that they were working with, and not only that, but just all of the compounding elements that they had already, you didn't need a racism element in this. You really didn't.
Well, the other thing is that Hanlon in the book is the one that really, he's obsessed with Derry's history because his father was like that.
Right.
Obviously, without spoiling too much, you hear in the trailer, he says, "Oh, my grandfather." He references the grandfather, not the parents. When you see the movie, you'll see why. But that's obviously very different. But he was the one that had the obsession with the Derry history. He was the one that loved the history of Derry, and he ends up becoming a librarian as he grows up. And he doesn't leave Derry. The rest of them do, and he stays.
Right.
In this movie, it's Ben Hanscom that puts it all together. So
you remember the kids' names. I don't remember any of the kids' names.
So I've been listening to this for a goddamn month.
The only character whose name I remember is Bev, and that's just because everybody says it
Right.
in like the span of like 2 seconds apart.
So you really, I felt like Ben's part in the book, Ben's part in the miniseries, could have translated perfectly fine, being the new kid in town and being beat up and all that. That's something that unfortunately kids still deal with that today. That would have translated fine into the movie. But I didn't like that they downplayed Mike Hanlon. The other thing I really didn't like was that they made Henry Bauer's father a police officer in this movie.
Yeah.
He wasn't in the book?
In the book, he was like the town madman. He was a racist, he was a drunk, he was an abusive father, and in a way, that was what gave Henry Bowers a motivation. Because Henry Bowers was raised to be like this. In this movie, he's just a really, really nasty school bully. And
obnoxiously
beyond nasty.
All right,
he's playing with God. Like, he was dangerous kid.
It's a Stephen King trope that I never liked and I never bought into. It's a bully who's not just a bully, but a goddamn sociopath.
Yes.
And nobody does a thing about it.
And it's funny that you say that.
Yeah.
Because in the book, the sociopath is Patrick Hofstetter, who had very little to do with this movie outside of his death.
Right.
He really pushed Henry Bowers, and something happens in the book, without me going on too much further about it, that really sets Henry over the top, and that starts the downward spiral.
Okay.
And he goes after the Losers Club one by one. He breaks Eddie's arm.
Oh.
Which didn't happen in this movie.
Yeah.
Eddie breaks his arm in the house on 29 Neibolt Street.
Yeah.
When they go in after Pennywise. The first time, which doesn't happen in the book. So, and his mother gets upset with him, and he has the line in the movie that, "Mom, my friends were there to protect me like you don't do." That line worked in the book because his friends were there trying to protect him when he was getting bullied, and he paid the price for it when they weren't there. Because they were not there to protect him, that's why he had his arm broken, and it drove the point home why he needed to be with his friends, not away from them. And it gave it more substance, and it made it for a better argument and a better point to shoot his mother down with. And that kind of gets lost in this movie.
I feel like a lot got lost in this, but I feel like it's because they tried to focus solely on the outlying effects, and they tried to focus solely on kids versus Pennywise, and I thought it worked.
It did work. It absolutely worked.
Again, like, because I don't have like 40 plus hours of backstory milling around in my head, I was able to just sit and enjoy it, and there were parts of it that I really enjoyed. There was a lot of it that I had problems with. Again, like, the characters are so cut and dry in these that it's like, okay, oh, well, there's the tough kid. There's the fat kid. There's the sociopath who carves his name into people's... That really...
Yeah.
What the flying hell? Come on.
But that's one of those things where in the book it explains why he does things like that. In this movie, it's like there's no real reason why he does it except he wants to be mean.
Taking the book out of it, though, I mean, I really did like this movie, but one of my biggest qualms with it was that they, like in the original, I feel like they tried to involve the adults a little bit more and tried to make other people believe, and that was lost entirely in this movie.
I think it works for the better.
But to what you said before, in the sense that they lost a lot, I also feel like the reason that got lost was because they were rushing to get to the kids versus Pennywise scene. And I like I said before, that we did get to see Pennywise a lot, but I feel like they were rushing to the scares, they were rushing to the battles. And I wish that there was a little bit more of a disbelief and a call to action between the adults and the kids. And I also feel like they lost a lot of the Derry history. Like, you saw it because I don't know the names, but you saw the one kid doing his research, but you didn't really get a lot of the backstory. I feel like they touched on it, but they didn't talk about enough of the disasters the way that they did in the original movie. And I'm sure they talked a lot more about it in the book.
They crammed a ton into 2 hours. I think they crammed as much as they needed to.
Yeah.
And again, like, I'm glad that they didn't involve the adults too much, because the adults in this movie sucked.
No, and they all ended up dying.
And not only that they all ended up dying, any scene with an adult in it was either, like, unnecessarily creepy or had no impact on me whatsoever. And, like, aside from Bev's father, who was just, he was gung-ho in that role. Good for him. But
excellent casting.
Very good casting.
In that role in particular.
I feel like the kids were the focus, and they should have been the entire time. Like, I feel like that was... I don't think it suffered at all for having the kids as the main focus here. You want to have, like, some background stuff, maybe some deleted scenes in the DVD which have more of the adult stuff, that's fine. But I think for this movie, for the running time that it gave, it needed to focus on those kids. Yeah. And it had a lot of kids to focus on, and it did a good job. And I liked most of them. I liked most of the actors. It's rare that you see, like, a thing where, like, all the child actors are good. I would bring up Stranger Things, but I really found the kid from Stranger Things annoying in this.
Oh, I loved him.
I thought he was really good.
I thought he was so funny.
I thought it was the same joke over and over again. I don't think it was his problem. I think it was the writing. I thought, like, any scene where he needed to show emotion, he did. I feel like a lot of, like, every scene could have been capped on with "your mom," high five, and then the other kids were good. Fat kid was cool. Bev was cool.
The Stranger Things kid, I actually loved, and Eddie. I do know a name because Eddie was my favorite.
Yeah,
the
Eddie
hypochondriac. He was amazing.
He was great.
Eddie was very good.
He was great. I thought the kid that played Bill Denbrough was good. I thought they were all... I felt the entire cast was perfect.
I thought they were
I
great.
thought
ensemble
everybody
cast,
was cast perfectly. And I did feel that they all reflected the characters that you read about in the book. I really did. And I thought that was what I enjoyed the most. And the movie had heart, and it had feeling. It was funny when it had to be. It was serious when it had to be. And it was scary without taking itself too seriously.
And it had different types of scares, which I think is the thing I appreciated the most.
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be nothing but jump scares, and I thought it was going to be really poorly, hokily done. The visuals in this were fantastic.
Yeah.
The stuff around not only Pennywise, but also the images of the painting that would come to life and attack the kid, of the cadavers for the hypochondriac.
Yeah.
The lepers and things like that. I thought that was great. And any scene with Pennywise was different than the last.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
It was never repetitive.
No. They showed the balloons a couple times, and as much as they're trying to make it, like, the balloons aren't scary. Like, they made the balloons like the symbol of fear for the entire thing. Did you see that they actually tied red balloons to, like, sewer grates?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like, for ad space? That was a good idea, but balloons aren't scary.
No, but you recognize what it's from, and really, it's the cheapest form of advertising.
Well,
Stephen King even put one on his house.
Stephen King put one in his window frame. That's fantastic.
And the amazing thing about this movie is that I don't know, admittedly, what the cost of the movie was to make it, but most of the publicity and most of the advertising was through their Facebook group, and then inflating a bunch of 10-cent balloons.
Yeah.
And people knew what it was about. I mean, the marketing was so cheap, and I would imagine that most horror movies don't cost an arm and a leg to make. This was probably a little bit more than average, but not a ton. The movie they thought would make $50 to $60 million the opening weekend, which they said would have been a success. It made over $117 million.
During a crisis in America.
Now imagine right? Because as of today, Hurricane Irma has just been made. It's been downgraded to a tropical storm. Any of our viewers in Florida, we hope you're okay, and you guys are in our thoughts.
Texas too.
Texas as well. Now think about, Houston got leveled. There are people they're not going to the movies.
No.
You lose Miami, Jacksonville, Pensacola, Tallahassee, Tampa, and Houston. Now imagine if that doesn't happen, how many more people are going to the movies?
It's true.
Yeah.
I do think that played a role. I think this movie could have probably done $125 million its opening weekend if that doesn't happen. I mean, and that really speaks to how people have embraced the movie. And everybody who's seen it that I've spoken to have loved it. I mean, really given it good reviews.
Here's the thing, though. I did really enjoy it. I don't feel that I need to watch it again.
I think it has rewatchability.
Yeah, I don't think I would, to be honest with you. I feel like now that I know all the beats of what's going to happen, I think like if I catch it on TV, I'll watch it. But I don't think I'm going to go out of my way to watch this again, like in a one-on-one setting.
I don't know. I feel like I could watch this. Like, part of me, like, I wish it wasn't 12:30 in the morning because I'd like to go inside and watch it again. I really enjoyed it that much. In spite of the two things that I really wasn't happy with, I really thought this was a fun movie. I thought it was scary. I thought Skarsgård was great. I thought the kids were excellent. And it reminded me, like, the music was great.
Yeah.
The music sounded like E.T. meets Star Wars meets any good haunting movie that you've seen.
Yeah.
It was good.
I mean, it was really, and it was
without
effective.
using that creepy music from the trailer, because I loved that music in one of the first trailers that they released, where Bill goes down to the basement with the "You'll Float 2" part.
Yeah.
And that was one of the creepiest things, and they didn't even need it.
Also, they showed that clip over and over again. It was still a good scene to watch.
Yeah.
Like, that was the one thing that they played in every trailer. They showed the one image of Pennywise, like, jumping out of the water and running towards him. And even watching that, like, having seen that so many times and knowing that it was coming, was still good. They did a great job with what they had to work with.
Yeah, this was one of those movies where it's a horror movie and all the good parts aren't ruined or just used in the trailer. Because how often does that happen? You go to see a horror movie and you walk out, you go, I should have just watched the trailer and stayed home and saved my $15.
This had so many great images in it.
It's so worth going to see.
So many cool effects. Yeah. It had a really good mix of CGI and practical stuff. Some interesting visuals that I don't think you were ever expecting to see. My favorite is when he opens his mouth and the arms just shoot out. Like, that was fantastic. It was just, I thought it was fun.
Yeah. He was just sadistic enough without being over the top.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I would watch it again just to, pick apart the character a little bit more and a lot of the visuals.
I think that's why
good.
I would watch it again. I don't know if I'd actually, like, hey, let's get together and watch it. Like, I would probably want to just watch it again just for the character's sake. But
I'm excited for the sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be very exciting. I think so. And that's another reason why I didn't mind taking the adults out of it, because the next movie is going to be all adults anyway. With, I'm sure, flashbacks to these kids. But it's going to be all adults. So.
I really hope that they do as good a job casting that one as they did for this one.
So it's funny that you bring that up, and this will be the last thing that we touch on. They had an article today. They asked the actors, the child actors, who they would pick to play themselves in the adult counterpart.
Holy crap.
So the kid that was Bill Denbrough picked Christian Bale. The girl that was Bev picked Jessica Chastain.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
The kid that was Richie Tozer, the one from Stranger Things, picked Bill Hader.
Okay.
I'd say Michael Cera.
No.
I feel like he looks like him.
No. Michael Cera is 30 years old and he can play an 18-year-old. You need somebody who looks like they're 40.
Also, I have to tell you, as somebody who really enjoyed this movie and wants to go see the sequel, if Michael Cera's playing that kid, anticipation drops.
The kid that played Eddie picked Jake Gyllenhaal.
Okay.
The kid that played Stanley Uris picked Joseph Gordon-Levitt. The kid that played Mike Hanbro picked what is his name? Chad Boswick. He plays Black Panther.
Black Panther.
Yeah.
He picked him, and my favorite, and the one that really does make the most sense, especially if you've read the book, the kid that plays Ben Hanscom, the heavyset kid, he picked Chris Pratt. Now you imagine you even get half of them together. Think about what half of them together can do.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be phenomenal.
This was so successful, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities.
They're not going to get Christian Bale.
No.
But I think they could get at least 2 or 3 of the others.
I think Jessica Chastain would do it. I think Bill Hader would absolutely do it.
And I think Chris Pratt would do it.
Chris Pratt's probably knocking on their door right now.
Chubby kid who slims down and is now like much more attractive though. That is Chris Pratt. Like that's typecasting for Chris Pratt. If I ever heard one.
Right.
It's true.
But that's what they want, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to see it. I know I would. I'm sure you guys have a similar opinion, but we'll wait and see. I think it's slated 2 years from now. I think is when they're looking to have this thing released, but they are developing it right now, and I think they have the script written.
Cool.
For the sequel, Chapter 2. But I mean that's how we felt about it, and we're interested to see how you guys felt about it. And you can obviously comment below, tweet at us, #RealWasted. Let us know what you thought about the film. Like and share the video. Subscribe to the channel. We pop on as often as we can and as much as time allows.
We'll probably do a Thirst Impressions for Thor Ragnarok next.
Absolutely.
So
that will definitely be doing.
That'll be fun.
Okay.
So, till next time, I'm Pat.
I'm Jackie.
I'm Sean. Cheers.